And that's when I said, like, you just got to duck your head so you don't hit into it again
Right,
anymore.
yeah. It'd be just nice and down
We're
that
live. We're
moment.
live. We're live. All
Dude,
right.
what are
Got
you
to get
doing?
Facebook in here.
Good.
All right. Got to let it breathe while we wait on a couple green check marks.
Can't
All
believe
right,
you
there
would
we
do
go.
that to me.
Welcome into another episode of the Dev Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and joining me, as always, is Lance Sanderson. Lance, my man, I've had plenty of opportunity to talk about the Bengals game. You haven't had a chance yet. So to kick us off, first of all, how are you doing?
Doing good. It's always great to be here on a wonderful Friday evening. I got a chance to kind of watch back the first half. Didn't get a chance to really break down the second half. Watched a lot of it on the condensed replay, but doing good. It's always good to come into a wonderful Dove Valley Deep Diver shows coming off of a win, and we got a great matchup this weekend. I really do think that this game, the more I look at it, I'm more and more optimistic the Broncos could maybe pull this one off. Buddy, how are you?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be here. I can't believe it's October already. I
I
can't believe
know.
we're 2 weeks away from the meet and greet. And it seems like the season just started just like a week ago. It doesn't seem like
Mm-hmm.
we're 4 weeks in. But is there anything about the Bengals game before we get into it that you wanted to talk about or bring up or anything like that before we turn our focus and shift on to the Philadelphia Eagles?
Well, first and foremost, I think that we saw a drastic improvement in Bo Nix's footwork, and that's what really led to him being a more effective and more efficient quarterback against the Cincinnati Bengals, where he wasn't climbing pockets that he didn't need to climb. He was stepping into throws, being way more accurate with the football, better decision making. We saw some explosive plays. We saw him that touchdown throw that he made to Cortland Sutton was absolutely fantastic. The defense was just swarming all over. That offensive line was just horrendous. um, Jake Browning didn't have anywhere to go with the football. Pat Surtain was awesome. Riley Moss was a little shaky to start, but had a good game overall. So good team win. I think that probably the biggest takeaway is when you're playing a bad team, the Broncos continue to prove that they're bad teams. Now we need to see them play a good team, which is what we're going to get this weekend. And they need to prove that they can actually close out and finish games. They had a big lead against the Bengals, and they held on to it. They made plays when they needed to, even after the Bo Nix interception. They got big stops on defense, marched down and scored that touchdown late in the second quarter. So a lot of positive signs, but it's a lot of what we saw last year as well. So I need to see some more improvement from this offense specifically.
Yeah, one good thing when you look past the Eagles game, not that the Broncos are able to do that, they have a lot of bad teams coming up. The Jets,
Mm-hmm.
the Giants, the Cowboys, the Texans, the Raiders, all of them are looking like bad teams or nowhere
Mm-hmm.
near expectations in the case of the Houston Texans, with a very clear weakness with the offensive line. And Denver, we just saw what Denver did to a offensive line that is not better than Houston's, but not much worse than what Houston's dealing with.
It's still the worst offensive line in football right now. That offensive line is absolutely
The
dog.
Bengals are worse, but
Yeah.
not by much. But before we get into it, talking about the Broncos-Eagles game, we are going to say hello to some people here in the chat. We have MBLE Test Prep saying, I'm here to party. As always, glad you can join us. Ernie Mason, Go Broncos Country Only. Wolfie coming in with the gifting a mile high huddle membership when you're not a member yourself. What's up with that, Wolfie? We appreciate the gifted membership. And if you were the one gifted the membership, make sure you say thank you to Wolfie. And Wolfie also adds, hit that like button. You know what time it is. Not sure if anyone else has noticed, but we have a slight problem tackling guys. And if we want to be Philly, we need to go back to the basics of tackling.
Mm-hmm.
Beating anybody, you got to make sure you tackle. And Denver has had an issue, and there's one big culprit at that, and his name, Alex Singleton, shouldn't be mentioned. We have Jordan Lewis coming in saying, evening, fellas. So excited for the game Sunday. Let's go, Broncos. Glad you're excited. I'm very excited as well. Chase Wellner with a DVD and the fist bump. Chase still waiting for that membership, my man. Ernie May saying, go Broncos country only. Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, good evening, Eric and Lance on the Dove Valley Deep Divers. Go Broncos. And we also have Peter Middleton slowly upsetting me and stabbing me in the heart, saying, big weekend, good morning from Singapore, off to Legoland. Oh, Peter, you break my
You
heart with
know,
that one.
I may
And
not be nearly as big into Legos as Eric is with all of his Star Wars collectibles and whatnot, but I still love Legos and have always wanted to go to Legoland. I'm jealous of you, sir.
and Quentin Caldwell coming in saying, hey, everybody, make sure you guys come in. If you are able to do so, obviously super chats and stars are always appreciated. You guys come over to Facebook or from Facebook to YouTube and become one of the members and all that stuff like that. Make sure you guys are doing that because speaking of Legos, there's a new Lego set that comes out. It's $1,000. It's the biggest Lego piece. It's a Death Star. I need to be able to afford it, guys. So come on in. But joking aside, getting into the Eagles game, I am not confident Denver can win this game. I am not confident that they will be unable to shoot themselves in the foot to close out the game. But there are a lot of ways they can beat the Eagles. And we dug into it a little bit beforehand, and I'm going to hammer away on it. I've already hammered away a little bit at it on Wednesday morning when I was doing the show with Dylan. But there is one very clear weakness that the Eagles have that Denver should be able to exploit. But before we get into that, we have Phil McLaughlin coming in. So good evening, Eric and Lance. How do you guys think will be the best option? Pass or run, hopefully even split? Well, Phil?
Let's dive into it, man.
Let's dive into it. The best way for the Broncos to move the ball, the way that they should be able to move the ball and have the most success, run the ball down the Eagles' throats, primarily between the tackles.
Yep.
They are an awful run defense in between the tackles.
Mm-hmm.
You get Jalen Carter, who has very questionable effort. Jordan Davis, who, as big as he is, it's not always showing up on the field with effort, and conditioning is an issue. Moro Ojomo, who I absolutely love as a pass rushing defensive lineman, is not good against the run, even though he can have some flashes. Run the ball down their throats between the tackles specifically. Outside the tackles, you can have some success, but this is a terrible rushing defense when it comes to their between the tackle play. And I've got plenty of numbers to dive into.
Yeah, like honestly, to me, it's the big issue that you are seeing right now is Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter. They're not playing with the high end effort. They're not playing with the high end talent. But neither one of those guys, both of those guys, are incredibly strong. They're incredibly stout. They do a great job up front. They're just not playing with the effort right now, and that to me is the biggest issue. Then Zach Bond is great as a blitzer. He's great in coverage, but in run defense, he's not playing gap sound assignment football. Jahad Campbell is struggling with that as well. Like there are opportunities here for the Broncos to get to the second level, get some gap separation opened up, get these linebackers out of the way. And then the big thing here, I think that J.K. Dobbins is the big answer in this running game. With the way that he has played following that week one, the week one game against the Tennessee Titans, I thought he was awful. I really did. I thought the explosiveness wasn't there. I thought the vision wasn't there. I thought the patience wasn't there. Every single week since then, he has gotten better and better and better at allowing his blockers up front, his offensive line, to set up blocks, move guys out of the way. He's showing that burst. He's showing the ability to make explosive runs. Broncos are one of the best teams in the NFL right now at explosive run rate. They're not great in success rate overall, but they have created a lot of explosive runs. And J.K. Dobbins, with the vision, the patience, and the acceleration that he has really been one of the best running backs in the NFL. I believe right now he's fourth or fifth in rushing yards this season. And this last game against the Cincinnati Bengals really kind of highlighted that. He went for the first time in 38 games. J.K. Dobbins broke the century mark for the Denver Broncos. This team is starting to find that kind of identity, and they're getting away from the outside zone. They're starting to focus on duo. They're getting more power game. They're getting Ben Powers out, who's doing a great job on pulls. Quinn Miners is starting to dominate up front again. This is where the Broncos can actually start to chip away at this Philadelphia Eagles defense and keep the offense off the field. And that, to me, is the biggest focus point of this game.
Yeah, another thing before I dive into the numbers here, Alex Palczewski is kind of a secret key player for this game. So the Broncos have used jumbo packages the second most in the NFL, only behind the Washington Commanders. Or sorry, they're tied with the Washington Commanders for the most. And of that, the Broncos actually lead the NFL by having gained 101 rushing yards with 27 yards over expected out of jumbo packages.
Mm-hmm.
They are doing a great job with it. And getting into this, when rushing between the tackles, the Broncos have the fourth most 10-plus yard runs. They're having the second highest yards per play at 5.5. They are allowing the fifth lowest run stuff rate. Only 10.2% of their runs between the tackles are being stuffed. They're averaging 1.8 rushing yards over expected per attempt and 1.82 yards before contact. That is the highest and second highest, respectively, with a 51% success rate rushing the ball between the tackles, which is the sixth best in the NFL. The Broncos, even though Luke Wattenberg has been a clear issue for this team, they are still managing to get it done when rushing between the tackles. They are not having the problems outside because, again, the biggest detriment, and I've talked about this on Monday, I talked about it on Wednesday, I've talked about it multiple times. The biggest detriment to this Broncos rushing offense has been the play of the tight ends. And so when you're rushing between tackles, you're really limiting the impact those tight ends are having on it. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia run defense, they are allowing the 8th most 10-plus yard runs. They are allowing the 7th worst yards per play. They are allowing the worst. They are getting the worst run stuff rate. Only 2.3 of runs up the middle. The Eagles are stuffing 2.3%. They are allowing 0.75 rush yards over expected per attempt, which is the 7th worst, and 1.62 yards before contact per attempt.
Yep.
That means you team players are getting basically 2 yards before they're even touched by an Eagles defender.
Yep.
That is the 2nd worst rate in the NFL. When you put the numbers against the Broncos should easily be able to run the ball between the tackles and hopefully force adjustments from Vic Fangio that can open up other elements of this game, like opening up rushing outside the tackles, opening up the passing game. I talked about this on Monday and I believe Wednesday morning. Sean Payton is very new school. He believes in you pass to set up the run. This is one of those games where you go old school. Vic Fangio is old school. So you match that, you go old school, you run to set up the pass, you build off the running, and Denver, again, everything is aligning where Denver can have that success running the ball between the tackles against this Eagles defense, which have issues with their defensive linemen properly gapping, and with the linebackers who are struggling to get off blocks if they even get into the right lane.
Exactly. And the big thing here, and I think that we need to go back to Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis here. We talked about effort here. The big thing is fighting off double teams and fighting off even just single blocks to try to move offensive linemen. They're not getting any kind of leverage right now. Both of those players have been known to stand up. They stand up and they allow their chest plates to get to have offensive linemen get into inside their chest plate. They both win with explosiveness. They 2-gapped at Georgia, but they're not playing a good 2-gap defense, which is what Vic Fangio wants you to do in the running game, because then it allows your linebackers to flow behind you. Your linebackers aren't reading it right. So if they're not going to hold offensive linemen away from getting up the field to attack these linebackers, you're going to have issues in the running game, just plain point blank, period. That's exactly what's going on with this Philadelphia Eagles defense right now. You're not getting any push up front. You're not getting any hold from these guys up front in the running game. And then your linebackers, whether it's Zach Bond, whether it is Jihad Campbell, or even in the safety play with especially Reed Blankenship. I think that he's been a solid player in coverage, but he's been absolutely atrocious filling gaps in the running game. You need to power run the football against this Philadelphia Eagles team. And I think that Ben Powers is really going to eat when he's pulling. As a puller, that dude is fantastic. He creates so much displacement as a puller. That to me is the biggest matchup to watch, is getting Ben Powers moving and getting him some momentum so where he can really drive that 330-pound frame that he has with him, and getting players displaced, opening up these running lanes and just run right behind him, because he's been fantastic. And this is the biggest weakness of the Philadelphia Eagles defense right now.
We have Glenn Ashley coming in and say, good morning, Eric and Lance. If I remember right, Glenn is down under joining us. So obviously time zone's quite different. He says, really excited for the Eagles game as it's going to show us a lot about a resolve and where we truly are at. I think we run the ball like we did last week. It's our best chance. 100%. Definitely agree with that. The numbers, even watching the film, Lance and I were watching some of the specifically runs between the tackles against the Eagles that their defenses had to stop, and they were not doing a good job at it. But Glenn and Peter Middleton, you guys coming in, really does show that, that this is not a geographical location. It is a state of being. And just coming in from Singapore and down under. And we appreciate you guys coming in and making the time for us on what is for us a Friday night or a Saturday morning for you, or whatever time it happens to be in Singapore. I don't know the time. I don't know the time there. Michael Rowan Kilo coming in saying RJ Harvey is looking like the new Joker on the offense. Kay Adams had a video done with running back RJ Harvey with the same number as New Orleans Saints running back Alvin Kamara. Yeah, RJ Harvey has really showed what he can do as a receiver out of the backfield against the Bengals. There was a couple missed opportunities. Bo Nix was late with an off place with a throw to him down the seam. And so you got to work on that. Still can see a little bit more consistency against the run, but he's looking like he's starting to put pieces together. Corey Johnson saying we can't have weeks 1 through 3 for Sutton or week 4 Franklin if we want to win this game. We need week 4 effort from Sutton. I'd say week 3 or 4 or week 2 or 3 for Sutton and week 3 and 4 for Franklin. Franklin was really good the first 2 weeks. He was bad the last 2 weeks. Sutton had started off the season really good and was good last week. But this is a tough matchup when it comes to coverage. Quinyon Mitchell has been probably the best corner in the NFL through 4 weeks. And he's absolutely excelling in the zone coverage that Vic Fangio runs and working all over. When working deep, 10 yards down the field in air yards specifically, Mitchell has been targeted 8 times. He's only allowed 2 receptions. He's been consistently matched up against the opponent's top receiver, in this case Sutton, for 173 routes since the start of last year. That is the second most of any defender. And if I remember right, that's only behind Patrick Surtain.
Yep.
So we're going to see a lot on it. If I'm Denver, I'm doing what I can to get Cortland Sutton matched up with against either Adoree Jackson or Keely Ringo, whoever ends up starting opposite him. I know Jackson's been hurt and Ringo started this last week, but I think Jackson is good to go for this game.
Yes, he has no injury designation. Yeah. There's actually no Eagles with any injury designation.
Except for Nakobe Dean. Nakobe Dean is out for this game.
I have it pulled up on Broncos.com right now, and he has no injury designation, at least as of right now.
No Nakobe Dean. He's out for Philadelphia, and Lucas Kroll is the only Broncos player that's out for the Broncos. Everybody else will be available. So, and even if Adoree Jackson's good to go, there's been talk of them making that switch anyways. So not sure who it's gonna be. I'm gonna do what I can, but either way, Troy Franklin, Denver needs him in this game. The Eagles have had a rough go of it as of late in allowing yards after the catch, and that is something that Troy Franklin has shown he can do quite well. I would like to see Pat Bryant get out there a little bit because he's shown he can do it. Yep. But Denver definitely needs it from Troy Franklin. If this is a quiet day from Cortland Sutton, I wouldn't be surprised at all.
Well, and I think that with what we saw this last week with Marvin Mims getting more involved in the offense, I think that that's a big ticket item here too, as well. Like the explosiveness in terms of what he brings with the football in his hands. That to me is something you can exploit because Eric, you had it pulled up. I got to get back to so yards after catch over expected right now. The Philadelphia Eagles rank second worst in the NFL. It's like 113 or something like that. In terms of yards after the catch over expected over the course of this season, not filtering out short plays, intermediate plays, long passing plays. If you have a player with the speed and the vision that Marvin Mims has against a defense that likes to limit explosiveness, they like to limit explosive plays. That's what Vic Fangio has been known for. I mean, we watched it for 4 years here in Denver. He's not going to try to limit those explosive plays. Marvin Mims brings you that explosive play potential. Troy Franklin gives you that explosive play potential. We saw that against the Indianapolis Colts, particularly on a slant play where he ran all the way across the field. Damn near got a touchdown. One play later, they get Troy Franklin in the end zone to capitalize on that drive. To me, it's those two players. It's Marvin Mims. It's Troy Franklin. Pat Bryant is a good shout there as well, and I think that would be a great way to go against this Eagles secondary, who they can play with some physicality. They do drive very well vertically on the football. Bigger players do better jobs at breaking tackles. So Bryant's a good shout here. But to me, I think Marvin Mims needs to have another big game against this team where they play off coverage. They don't play a whole lot of man. They're playing more man than they usually do. But get him the ball over the middle of the field and just let him go to work. I've been begging for that for damn near 2 years now.
Lance, I swear, one of these days, if you're listening in, find somebody who won't quit you like Lance won't quit Marvin Mims over the middle of the field, because Lance forgets how damaging safeties are when they're coming downhill when receivers work in the middle of the field.
All right.
Get some scans of Wes Welker's brain, and that'll give you the evidence as to what I'm talking about with it.
Can I also throw in the fact that Marvin Mims is an elite punt returner, and who does he run into all the
Lance,
time?
There's a difference. You're looking ahead with defenders coming at you instead of looking back at the ball with defenders coming from behind you.
That's a fair point. It's a fair point.
There's a difference between punt returns and working the middle of the field. Peter Milton saying it's 9 a.m., so that is about a 16-hour difference for me, 17-hour difference for me. I'll try to remember that, Peterton, but no guarantees. Uh, Quentin Caldwell coming in with a $5 super chat saying, "Hey, Eric and Lance, could this be a game where Hufanga can have a very busy day? And is it possible for him to play as a spy and stop the run?" Yes, this is a game where I would really be looking at Vance Joseph using Brandon Jones as that high safety and bringing Hufanga down a little bit, not only because of the threat the Eagles have when they can work that shorter game of it with AJ Brown on those screens or Devontae Smith catching those quick passes, those quick slants, and being able to make something happen after the catch, as well as being able to spy on Jalen Hurts and contribute to shutting down Saquon Barkley with what we've seen Alex Singleton do when trying to cover running backs. Not good. Yes, this should be a very big game for Hufanga, as it should have been against the Colts, which I bring up because Vance Joseph didn't use Hufanga that way. So I hope Vance Joseph learned from his mistake and uses Hufanga properly in this one.
Well, and I think the other thing here is hopefully Vance Joseph learns from his mistakes going against Lamar Jackson last year, because Jalen Hurts has the ability to run on you, and he's not as explosive as Lamar Jackson is, but he can take advantage of soft coverage and zone coverage at the second level, and he can really kind of grind out yardage on the ground. And to be honest here, I think they need to get after Jalen Hurts and try to get him off his spot to where you can force him into mistakes and play some tight coverage where you can force him into throwing some interceptions. Like, that to me is a big thing here. And Hufanga in the running game, that needs to be a big focus here. Saquon Barkley is one of the best running backs in the NFL in terms of forcing missed tackles this season. I don't have the exact numbers, but I know that he has been consistently good throughout his entire career in terms of forcing missed tackles. Brandon Jones, while a solid tackler, is not Talanoa Hufanga. Hufanga has been playing absolutely spectacular driving in the running game this year. And to me, you get him closer to the line of scrimmage, you make him focus on those running. Make him be a spy not only against the run game with Saquon Barkley, but use him as a spy on Jalen Hurts. Chase him around and go hit him, because Talanoa Hufanga is one of the most physical hitters in the NFL. So that's where I'm at. Play man coverage and have one of your men be focused on Jalen Hurts, and that should be Talanoa Hufanga.
Yeah, sorry. So as I talked about, not this last Monday, but the Monday before, we started having issues with our car. It got into the shop, and just after we went live, my wife got a call from them, and we're able to go get our car. Come to find out, fortunately, it was only needed oil. I am not a car person in my defense here. And I am one of those that, since I am not a car person, if anything happens, it's to the car shop with it. Only thing I can do is I can change a headlight. That's about it. And change a tire. I know how to do that. I don't even know how to put gas in a car. That's not a good thing.
So, fun fact about Eric, he doesn't even have a driver's license.
I do not. I am terrified of driving. But we're not here to talk about that. We're not here to talk about my fears. Because I have a bigger fear of driving than I do of the Eagles this week. But we have more super chats here. And before we get back into this Cody W with the $5 super chat saying Dobbins has something to prove. He wants to show everyone what he can do with a year of not rehabbing an injury. Beat the Eagles at their own game. Yeah, I talked about this, I believe, on Monday. I didn't realize this was the first offseason since coming into the NFL where Dobbins wasn't going through rehab. That every other offseason he's been rehabbing from injury. I didn't know that until he made that comment about it during this week. And that, I mean, I was very questionable about J.K. Dobbins. There is no denying that. It's not hard to go back and watch. I was very questionable about it because last year he was great for the first 4 weeks, but then he absolutely fell off and was one of the most inefficient running backs to close out the season for the Chargers. Had a lot of questions, but he was able to focus on just improving himself and not having to work back from injury. And we're definitely seeing that. There are still some issues with his game. He still isn't the most bursty or explosive guy, but he's still managing to churn out 10+ yard runs. So he's still having those explosive runs, even though doesn't have that explosive speed. And it's working because of the physicality that he has. We also have Camden coming in with a $10 super chat saying, "What's up, Broncos country? I'm super excited for the game on Sunday versus the Eagles. Is the lack of turnovers for the Broncos D a problem, or does it not matter as much because of the elite pass rush? It always matters."
I want to talk about this.
The Broncos look like they have a good defense, And one of the ways there's two ways for me that they can become a great defense. Cut back on the stupid penalties, force more takeaways, force turnovers. That is what can make a good defense, a great defense, or even an elite defense. And they're just lacking that. So yes, it is a problem for it. And turnovers are something that are hard to predict and are not always, the most translatable from game to game. But this is something that the Broncos need to look into trying to generate more, is more takeaways.
No, you're absolutely not wrong. I listened to you and Nick on Tuesday night for a little bit. I actually threw a couple of comments in there. I'm not sure if you saw them or not. You guys were talking about the lack of turnovers and how that is it absolutely is a problem right now. The Broncos need to be better. If nothing else, interceptions are always volatile. Fumbles are always volatile. But the one thing you can do defensively is continue to create consistent pressure against the quarterback and force him to make mental mistakes with the football.
I'm going to leave you right there. I'm going to jump out of here so we can go get our car. Lance carried away. Take it for a few minutes and continue talking. I'll be right back.
All right. So the big thing here, guys, is turnovers are so super volatile. Like they're incredibly hard to predict. They're incredibly hard to create. But the best way that you can go about creating turnovers is forcing your quarterback, the opposing quarterback, into bad decision making. You've got to continue to create pressure. With the way that the Broncos are playing in coverage right now, excuse me. With the way that the Broncos are playing in coverage right now, they're allowing some of the lowest yards of separation against all sorts of passes, whether it's in the short game, whether it's in the intermediate game, whether it's in the deep passing game. These cornerbacks are playing incredibly well. And I want to highlight just Riley Moss for a minute, because he's been one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL in terms of forcing completions. He's done a great job staying sticky in coverage. He's been feisty, despite the lack of length, which Eric brought up the other day. Like these guys are playing so well in coverage right now. The biggest thing here is that if you continue to create consistent pressure against quarterbacks, force them into tight window throws, you're going to start creating more turnovers. You're going to start creating more forcing completions. And the biggest thing here is continue playing well against the run. You've got to start punching at the football. That's one of the things that this Broncos team isn't doing well enough. They're not punching at the football. They're not playing the peanut punch type of defense. They're gang tackling, but they're not swiping at the ball nearly often enough. So like the big thing here is, again, like these turnovers and the lack of turnovers right now isn't necessarily the biggest deal, because you're doing everything so well across the defensive formation in terms of just creating so much pressure. You're playing in tight coverage. You're playing well against the run in terms of bringing multiple tacklers to running backs in open field. They'll if you can start taking a little bit more advantage of some of these tight coverage, these high pressure situations, these turnovers are going to start coming for this defense. It may not be like the 2015 level of defense where they were very, very good at creating a lot of pressure and creating a lot of turnovers. You're creating pressure. You're creating open field tackling opportunities. You have the opportunity to do that. You just got to capitalize on it just a little bit more.
Yeah. I can't talk a lot about what I heard because I didn't hear a lot of it. Again, it is so good to finally be getting our car back. Anyways, we have Michael Ronquillo coming in saying, who gifted 5 Mile High Huddle memberships. If you guys were one of those in the chat and lucky enough to get one of those memberships, make sure you give a thank you to Michael. We appreciate that. We appreciate you coming in all as much as you do, Michael, every single time, every single night, every single show, with the support and everything. But I want to get back to the Broncos rushing offense against the rushing defense. We've talked a lot about J.K. Dobbins for it. Mm-hmm. I think there's an opportunity for R.J. Harvey here as well when you look at outside the tackle running. So when you look outside the tackle, the Eagles do a little bit better. They're about middle of the pack. And the Broncos, for the most part, they're actually top 10 when rushing outside the tackles, except for one bad area that they got to clean up. And what helps this is they have the 7th most 10+ yard runs. They have 10 of them on the season so far. They're 9th in yards per play. They're tied 9th for stuff rate. They're 9th in rush yards over expected per attempt. They're not getting a lot of yards before contact, and they're 23rd in success rate. 37.9 of the runs outside of the tackles have been successful. They are very boom or bust. This is an area where the Eagles, with their middle of the pack aspect of it, the Broncos can sit there and use RJ Harvey as a counter to J.K. Dobbins, which I cannot believe that it took Sean Payton 3 games before he started giving the running backs a series instead of going a handful of plays and rotating them. It is so much more efficient for and better for your running backs to give them series. It's like we talk about running back or quarterbacks getting into the rhythm. Same thing is true for your running backs. If you rush them 3 times, then you pull them off the field and insert another running back, you're destroying that rhythm. And sometimes you're holding your offense back a little bit because they start seeing something and that can be exploited on that series. And the next time they're in a couple plays, and next time they're out there, the defense may have made a substitution or something's changed. So I think the Broncos would be wise to sit there and really pound the rock between the tackles with J.K. Dobbins, and then use RJ Harvey outside, and again continue to use him in the passing game as well.
Yep.
And Michael asking, should the Broncos running backs run inside or out? Both. The focus should be between the tackles with using RJ Harvey as a counter to outside, because eventually the ideal situation is you rush inside with good success, that Vic Fangio starts collapsing inwards a little bit with his defensive front and his edges and his linebackers to really try to stop that run. And then you're able to get an explosive run outside of the tackles with a crack toss or a pitch or stretch run to RJ Harvey. So you really want to use that to, again, I'd mentioned it earlier, run to set up the pass. It's also run to set up the run inside to set up the outside stuff that Denver does and all that. Now, I want to flip over. I want to talk about the Philadelphia offense against this Denver defense. I know you're talking a lot about the pressures here. There is a lot of possibility or a lot of room for success against this Broncos defense, against the Philadelphia Eagles offense, but it all comes down to the wide receiver matchups here. Patrick Surtain, he should be all over A.J. Brown. He should shadow him, and there should be worry here. A.J. Brown has been quiet through 4 games this season. He has as many targetless halves this year as he does from 2022 through 2024. So he's had at least one half in every single game where he hasn't had a single target. That means that there's a good chance to look to force feed him in this one.
Well, and
especially with him already voicing some frustrations.
Yes. I was just about to say that with him voicing the frustrations and being cryptic on Twitter, this dude, when you break down the numbers, I was listening to Trevor Sikkema and Dalton Wasserman earlier over the summer. They were breaking down the wide receiver rankings going into the season, and they actually had A.J. Brown as the number 1 wide receiver in the NFL based on what the numbers that they pulled. And I wish I had that information, but this is off the top of my head. Number 1 in target rate, number 2 in success rate, number 1 in yards after the catch, like a whole bunch of different big time statistical categories. AJ Brown has consistently been over the last 3 seasons right there with Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. This dude is an elite football player, and he's pissed off that he's kind of relegated to more of a blocking wide receiver and an accent piece to an offense when he should be one of the higher target rate wide receivers in the NFL, because he is so successful with the ball in his hands. He's explosive as a playmaker. He does a great job. Again, as a blocker, like, this is one of the more well-rounded wide receivers. He's pissed off right now. And I think he should be, because this Philadelphia Eagles offense, they are 31st in the NFL in passing yards per game, and they're 16th in the running game. This offense is not performing at as a high of a level as what everyone thinks that it is. And yeah, they're scoring a whole lot of points, but a lot of those points are coming from their special teams. They have 3 blocked field goals, 2 of them returned for touchdowns, a blocked punt for a touchdown, and at least one, I think a second, but I don't remember off the top of my head, 1 interception return. Like, this team is so well-rounded right now that they don't necessarily need the offense to dominate like they did last season or over the last 20 games and 20 out of 21 games, including the Super Bowl, they've won in a row. They don't need this passing attack to be the true metric of where the offensive success comes from. And A.J. Brown, with as talented as he is, he deserves the football way more. I understand the frustration. I do agree with you, Eric. I think that this is one of those games where, hey, we're going to line you up against Pat Surtain and see what you can do. If you can go beat Pat Surtain, then we'll start feeding the ball to you more. We're going to force feed it in your direction and try to take advantage of what I think is actually a good matchup for A.J. Brown going against Surtain. I know that's crazy to say, but A.J. Brown does the good things that Surtain struggles with, the quickness and separation, specifically over the middle of the field. Like A.J. Brown does a great job on slants. He does a great job on in-breaking routes. He does a great job on screen plays. Those are areas where Surtain needs to be better overall as a player, and you could potentially take advantage of that.
Yeah. Now, another thing with this is we have Cody W coming in with $2 super chat saying Sutton should know exactly how Vic defense plays. Not necessarily. Like he obviously knows the basics of what Vic Fangio wants to do with his defense, but different team, different players, far different talent levels. Those all change a little bit. You'll have a general idea of what's going to be thrown his way, but it's same playbook, but you don't know what's going to be called at any given time because you don't know what trusts are going to do. You don't know what they're going to do. For all we know, Vic Fangio could be feeling himself and not put Quinton Mitchell on Cortland Sutton. He can be like, "Hey, we're going to put so and so on him. We're going to put Cooper DeJean on Sutton." For all we know, doubt that happens. It's going to be Quinton Mitchell, but just to make my point there. Now continue on this. The biggest thing is we've talked a lot about we talked throughout the week and even last week leading up to the game. We talked a lot about the Broncos defensive matchups on the defensive line against the Bengals offensive line. And there's a lot to talk about here with the Eagles one too. Jordan Mailata against Nick Bonito. This is the toughest matchup Nick Bonito probably has all season long.
Yeah.
Mailata has been a top 3 offensive tackle this year with Garrett Bowles and Penei Sewell. And they have been far and away the top 3 with everybody else behind him. Joe Alt was up there, and then Nick Bonito brought him down to reality before he got hurt, unfortunately. So that's a tough one. Lane Johnson, he's been dealing with some injuries. He's not the player he once was. So Jonathan Cooper against Lane Johnson, that's an interesting one. But this interior offensive line of the Eagles is why they're struggling to do anything on offense. This rushing attack is not good. Even if you factor out the tush push plays, they are still a really bad rushing offense. And actually it makes it worse because those tush push plays, when you take those out, that significantly lowers their success rate running the ball. Because even though they're only picking up a yard or two on the tush push, those are successful runs because they're using it to pick up the first down. And so first downs, automatic success, gives you a new set of downs. Denver has such a good matchup with John Franklin Myers against Landon Dickerson and Zach Allen against Tyler Steen. And even if they flip the two, which they have been doing Ventures have been doing a little bit more throughout the last couple of weeks, Zach Allen against Landon Dickerson is an advantage for Denver, and John Franklin Myers against Tyler Steen. It's probably even the biggest matchup out of the 4 possible matchups of these guys. And so Denver should be able to really control the middle. Their focus here really needs to be limiting Jalen Hurts and what he can do with his legs and getting outside the pocket, which we talked about earlier about bringing Hufanga down and using him to spy, or even using Nick Bonito to spy on Hurts a little bit. And the biggest thing, they got to keep the Eagles behind schedule. They cannot get them into short yarded situations where, as DJ Jones said, their best way of stopping the run is to grab their nuts and hope for the best. You cannot get them into those short yarded situations where they can use the tush push, because guess what? Even though the NFL refs have been focusing on cutting down on alignment penalties for the offense, the tush push is apparently exempt because they line up offsides and in the neutral zone every single time they do it, and it's never freaking called. I don't think the play should be banned, but it should be penalized when they do that. But that's beside the point. Just keep them from getting into that by keeping them behind schedule.
That's the biggest thing. This offense does such a great job of converting 1st and 10 into 2nd and 5, or 1st and 10 into 2nd and 4, and then they convert 2nd and 4 into 3rd and 2, and here comes a tush push, and then they want to get creative all of a sudden. Instead of doing a tush push inside the red zone, they flip a reverse off of it and score a touchdown. Like that's the biggest thing. Like you said, keep this defense behind the sticks. If you can limit the running game. And to me, I think the biggest matchup here is whoever's lined up against Landon Dickerson, who's playing hurt right now, and it's very clearly that he's playing hurt. His mobility is lacking. He's got some kind of leg injury. I don't remember what it was, but he's lacking mobility. He's lacking strength. He's lacking leverage. He's lacking that you need as a guard to play at the high level at the NFL level. So to me, John Franklin Myers and the way that he uses his hands, I think Zach Allen with the explosive penetration that he's able to get, target him specifically in the running game and get underneath his pad level, because he's been absolutely atrocious as a run blocker specifically. In pass protection, he hasn't been terrible, but as a run blocker,
he's been the worst pass protecting guard in the NFL.
Really? Okay, so
he is the only guard in the NFL that is in, I believe, the only one in double-digit sacks. I'd have to double check on that.
Really? Okay, so I didn't know that. Like I knew he had been bad. I didn't realize it was that bad. Like regardless, Landon Dickerson is a player you need to target right now, and Cam Jurgens. So this week, Eric, I know you tweeted it out. This week, the Broncos are eligible to get Malcolm Roach off of IR. Probably not going to play this week, but if he does,
he's not going to be activated. If he was, he would have been activated today.
Okay, so I missed all that. Regardless, let's go to DJ Jones here, because DJ Jones playing against the run has been absolutely phenomenal this season. He has been incredible. He's doing a great job separating off of blocks. He's getting into the backfield. He's doing a great job as a pass rusher. DJ Jones versus Cam Jurgens, let's go. Because Cam Jurgens is a good football player. He plays with leverage. He does a good job moving. I want to see DJ Jones go head-to-head against Cam Jurgens and see what he can do in the running game specifically, tying off of how the struggles of Landon Dickerson have been. Because if there's one thing that you can say about Cam Jurgens, yeah, he's a good run blocker, but he's taking more losses because of Landon Dickerson's inability to just play at a high level because he's been so hurt. So it's almost like, Eric, you and I talked about it privately in the group chat. Quinn Miners and Luke Wattenberg, how Quinn Miners should just hate Luke Wattenberg for how bad that he has been. Cam Jurgens needs to hate Landon Dickerson for how bad that he has been, especially in the running game.
Yeah, I'd say he's actually been worse in pass protection than he has the run game. So I was mistaken. There are two players that have given up more pressures than Landon Dickerson. They're at 14. Landon Dickerson's at 13 pressures given up, but he leads all guards in sacks given up with 3, and he has the lowest pass blocking efficiency among all guards in the NFL. He has been awful. He's barely over 90, and I believe his run block or his pass block win rate is bottom 2. And he might be the worst. I can't remember exactly. And his run block win rate is, I believe, bottom 10, but just barely in the bottom 10. Wow. He's been bad, and Tyler Steen hasn't been a whole lot better.
Right.
And so there's such an advantage there. But the issue is when, again, tush push, that's where they've been successful. Because Landon Dickerson, all it is you got to line up, and you line up off sides because your head is or you line up in the neutral zone because your head is in the way of the ball, and the center is over the ball, which means he's offside. There's rules here.
Yep.
And that just aren't called because it's annoying, and the NFL is not always consistent. And so when they do that, they're just going forward. They're taking out the legs, they're collapsing it for Jalen Hurts to go up or go over the top, or they're going and they're driving up for Jalen Hurts to go underneath. And it depends. And what's added more is that the Eagles have added a wrinkle with their tush push with the fake off of it.
Yep.
So it just adds to the ability to get off, to stay out of that. But Denver, they have a lot of good matchups. DJ Jones should be able to be in line for a good game. If Denver can keep this offense in check with keeping them behind schedule, I think Denver's chances of winning this actually go up. Even though the Eagles' offense hasn't been good, they've been very opportunistic. They have made those key plays when needed. They may not be the most consistent, but again, you can overcome consistency by just making the plays when needed. And that's what this Eagles team has done. That's why they are 4-0.
Yeah.
And just this Broncos defense, they had a great game against the Bengals, but you cannot have create the openings for the Eagles like you did with the Bengals that the Bengals weren't able to exploit and find success. There was a lot of openings that because of the offensive line issues and Jake Browning issues that the Bengals could not exploit. Cannot do that against the Eagles. There is basically no margin of error for the Broncos if they want to pull off the upset.
Yeah. And that's the big thing. I was going to write an article about this at milehighhuddle.com earlier this week, talking about just the timely playmaking ability that the Broncos just seemingly don't have. And that's one of the biggest things. The Broncos consistently shoot themselves in the foot, whereas the Eagles are finding the biggest playmakers to make the biggest plays at the right time. Whether it is the blocked field goal return for a touchdown, Jordan Davis, you got the blocked punt return for a touchdown, Sidney Brown, you got the was it Brown that had the interception return too? I swear they had an interception. Regardless,
they've had three blocked kicks.
Yeah, three
but no
blocked
interception
kicks.
return for a touchdown.
Okay, so 3 blocked kicks, 2 of them returned for touchdowns. You've got the big explosive run from Saquon Barkley. You've got the explosive pass. Like they make plays when they absolutely need them to be made, and this Broncos team can't get out of their own way. That to me is the biggest separating factor in this game. To tell you the truth, is the Eagles they've won 20 out of their last 21 games, and all 4 of these games this season have been by 1 score or less.
Yeah.
Like barely winning these football games. They won that game against the Rams on the blocked field goal for a touchdown when the Rams were going to kick the game winning field goal. They find ways to make plays. Denver in these key opportunities go against the Indianapolis Colts. They needed a drive, a 4-minute drive to go and kick a field goal. Will Lutz doinks the upright. Daniel Jones takes him back down, scores a touchdown. Then they get the ball back because Bo Nix can't do anything with the offense. They go 3 and out, game-winning field goal, and you get the leverage penalty against the Chargers. Same exact thing. You've got an 8-point lead in that game. You go 3 and out, then you get the crazy touchdown pass from Justin Herbert to Keenan Allen. Go 3 and out again. The Chargers come back and they kick a game-winning field goal. So you're not getting it on offense. You're going 3 and out in critical situations, but you're also not getting the stop on defense right now. And that to me is the biggest problem is you can't make the key plays when you absolutely need them to. And the Eagles are, because they're a championship level football team. They're experienced in winning. They know how to close out games. And that to me is 100% the biggest factor.
Yeah. Now, before we get into our bold predictions, one thing to remember, Denver has not won in Philadelphia since you and I have been alive.
Yep.
They have not won in Philadelphia since 1986.
Yep. Which was a blowout win, by the way. It was like 33-7 or something like that. I can't remember the exact score. But also, let's talk about the limited opportunities to winning in Philadelphia, because they only go to Philadelphia once every, 8 years with the way the rotating schedule is. I believe that their record against Philadelphia in general is like 5-9 or something like that. And again, they haven't won in Philadelphia. The last time they played in Philadelphia was a 55-17 or whatever it was blowout win in the Carson Wentz 26-18, whatever year it was that the Eagles won the Super Bowl. That was the last time they played in Philadelphia. So they don't get the opportunity to do it very often. But there's a lot of different factors here with why the Broncos struggle in Philadelphia. 90% of those games, if I remember correctly, are 11 o'clock kickoffs for the Broncos in Denver. They would play that game at 11 o'clock. It's the early window. So you're not getting quality opportunities to play the Philadelphia Eagles in Lincoln Financial Stadium or whatever stadium they had before. So I understand the idea behind that, but I also don't necessarily take a whole lot of credence into that. Into this particular matchup. I get those factors are always they're always a concern, but to me, you played 9 times in Philadelphia in your entire existence. Let's not make it like that's a big time factor.
It is a factor though, and it's not just playing in Philadelphia; it's playing on the East Coast.
That's the bigger
Denver
thing, yes.
is historically bad playing on the East Coast in the early times frame on the East Coast.
Yep.
And when you have one win in Philadelphia in your history, it matters. Even though you've only played Philadelphia 14 times, if you are 1-8 or 1-6 or whatever it is in Philadelphia, it matters. It's not something to be thrown away just because you don't like the stat, just because they haven't played that much. And I'm not saying that's what you're saying. Just to be clear, I'm not saying that's what you're doing. It is just one of those things that it is one of those variables that go into winning an NFL game that you have to account for.
Yep.
Denver does not do well in early games on the East Coast, and they have not done well in Philadelphia. They are 9-5 against Philadelphia in general, and 4 of those 5 wins have come in Denver. Yes, they don't play them a whole lot because if you think about it, there's that cycle where every 4 years you're playing that division. Or you're playing the opposing division in the opposing conference, you're only playing them at most basically twice in a decade. Yeah, it's not going to be a whole lot. But Denver has had so many issues here. It's an early morning game, and then playing in Philadelphia. Yes, the fact that they've only won once in Philadelphia, and it was in 1986, 33-7. As you were right on that. It matters. It is a factor into this game.
Yep.
Now, bold predictions quickly, because we only have about 10 minutes here, and we also got to get into our scores. What is your bold prediction for the Broncos offense against this defense? Real quick before we get into this. Also, last week I find it funny that I made a joke about another 100-yard rusher, and Denver actually gets a 100-yard rusher. I found that funny when as soon as I saw that happen, I'm like, oh man, that's kind of funny. And I meant to say something in our chat.
All right. Well, I'm going to go right back to the well here. No, I'm not. I'm really not. I think that Bo Nix is going to have some success throwing the football, but it's not going to be for much. What's the best way to say this? He's going to be efficient and effective throwing the football, but it's not going to result in a lot of points. I think that Vic Fangio playing the cloud coverage that he does, the match quarters coverage, Bo Nix does a lot better playing in systems that allow him easy access throws, especially in the quick game, where he's going to be able to have some success against this defense. I think that he's going to throw for at least 250 yards, but not throw a touchdown pass.
My bold prediction for this is that the Broncos get over 200 yards rushing. Not necessarily a 100-yard rusher. Team total over 200 yards.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be hard to do that without a 100-yard rusher, but it's possible.
Can I ask you a question on this? I want to go back to what we saw against the Bengals last week, where J.K. Dobbins had 16 carries for 101 yards. R.J. Harvey had 15 carries, I believe, for 58 or something like that. What do you think the running back carry split is going to look like this week?
I think it should be much of the same.
Me too. I think it should be even more closer to 20 for Dobbins and 15, 16 for R.J. Harvey, because I think you need to focus on the run that much.
Yeah. I think you need to keep the ball out of the air and keep the ball out of Bo Nix's hands. And nothing against Bo Nix. It deals with giving credit to Vic Fangio and this passing defense. Mm-hmm. And playing in Philadelphia against a very opportunistic Denver. So again, if it's 20-15 or if it's 25-20, whatever the case, they need to use the running backs a lot. Mm-hmm. And Michael and Kayla saying don't like early NFL games period. I don't either. It's 9 o'clock in the morning for me for this game, and then it's even worse the following week when I have to be up at 7 o'clock in the morning for it on a Sunday. Now, so 200 yards rushing for the Broncos offense. Yours is a big game from Bo Nix with about 250 yards passing, but no touchdowns. What about for the defense?
I think that this is the game where you can really start to force the issue. And I was talking about it with pressure rate. Yeah, the Broncos haven't created a whole lot of turnovers here lately, but Jalen Hurts doesn't do well throwing into tight man coverage. And with the amount of pressure that I think that this Broncos team can create, they're going to create 2 turnovers. And I think they're going to come via Jalen Hurts' arm. I think you're going to get 2 interceptions. One from Pat Surtain, one from Riley Moss. I got to shout out my boy Riley Moss, who, Eric, I know you talked about him. You had an article about him earlier. He is playing at an incredibly high level. Yeah, he's getting targeted a lot. He's the second highest, or I think first highest targeted cornerback in the NFL right now. But he also leads the NFL in forcing completions. There's issues with this play for sure. But with him playing tight coverage the way that he's been playing, you're going to force a quarterback like Jalen Hurts, who can make some questionable decisions with the football at times, force a bunch of pressure up front. You're getting two interceptions against Jalen Hurts this week.
Yeah. Now, my bold prediction for this defense is I can't remember what I wrote in my article. So either tonight, or tomorrow, my key matchups will come out for the Broncos offense against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, and then against the Philadelphia Eagles against the Broncos defense, and then bold predictions. I can't remember what mine were. I think that the Broncos hold Saquon Barkley under 3.3 yards per carry. He may have a good game receiving. So I'm not doing total scrimmage yards. I'm not doing pure rushing yards. 3.3 yards per carry. He's only averaging 3.1 right now. The Broncos defense has had some consistency issues, especially against better running backs, Jonathan Taylor.
Yep.
So under 3.3 rushing yards per carry from Saquon Barkley this one. Now, Lance, before we get out here, Score prediction.
Unfortunately, even though I have Bo Nix having a 250-yard passing game, like I said, I don't think he gets the ball into the end zone. If he does, it's only once. I have the Eagles sneaking this one out, and it's probably because of a late game breakdown offensively, allowing the Eagles a short field where they can kind of grind the clock down, can kind of focus on that running game. I have it 20-16 Eagles over the Broncos in a heartbreaker because I think that the Broncos are going to have a late game lead again. Guys, the Broncos have played 155 snaps this year with a lead, and they have not trailed in the fourth quarter at all in any of their 4 games. The only time the 2 losses they have came on game-winning, expiring clock field goals. They're going to be in this game. They're going to play well defensively, but they're going to have a bad offensive turnover, whether it's a fumble or a Bo Nix interception, and the Eagles are going to take advantage of it, and they're going to go down and have a late-game touchdown to seal the victory.
I have Philadelphia winning 23-21, and I have a similar situation playing out, except I have Denver driving into field goal range, and Will Lutz either missing it or it getting blocked.
This team is playing
for the game winner.
This team is playing so well on special teams up front. They're doing a great job identifying mismatches. They're overloading one side.
That helps when you have a 6'6" giant and Jordan Davis working the block unit.
That's true. That punt though, I watched the punt block back the other day, and they ran. Was it 5 or 6? I think it was 5. They ran 5 guys on one side of the line of scrimmage, and the personal protector was on the opposite side. So they had 4 blockers on 5 guys, and the 5th guy came untouched and got the punt block. Like it's beautiful schemed up. This special teams coordinator, I don't know his name in Philadelphia. He's doing a great job of scheming things up with his punt block and field goal block teams right now. And Darren Rizzi's not doing a great job defensively with that aspect right now. Like, the Broncos special teams is taking a big step back. That's the separator.
Yeah, and it would be nice to win this game because Denver could end up being, if they can win this, and you have New York, the Jets, the Giants, the Cowboys, the Texans, and the Raiders. So if the Broncos can beat the Eagles and go up to 3-3, we can be looking at them, or 3-2, we can be looking at them being what? 7-2, 8-2, going into week 11 against the Kansas City Chiefs prior to their bye week. And if they can be 6-2 at that point, it really puts them in a good position for obviously the division, depending on what happens with the Chargers, with 1 game still against that. And, still having 4 games against the conference opponents going into week 11, it can put them in a really good position for the division and a really good position for the wild card spot, because when you look at some of the other teams fighting for wild card spots, the Jaguars, the Colts, one of them winning the division, one of them playing for the wild card spot, the Steelers, they seem to be possibly in it. The Patriots, a lot of these teams are now getting to where the schedule is a little bit tougher for them.
Yep.
So a win would be great. A win would install them with a lot of confidence that can carry over for multiple games, especially in games against opponents that they should beat. But that's going to have to do it before us. Before we get out of here, we do have some final words. First of all, if you guys are able to do so, go over to youtube.com/milehighhuddle. And you guys can become a member where you guys get access to all of our exclusive content there, like Kelberman's Korner and Broncos Book Club, as well as some other stuff that are on the works. If you guys are able to do so, you guys can also leave super chats on YouTube and stars on Facebook to help support the show and help keep the lights on here. But if you are unable to do so financially, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. It only takes a matter of seconds, and it helps us with the algorithms that are ever changing and ever being frustrating, especially on YouTube and Facebook. And if you guys can take another just moments of time, go over to Spotify or Apple Podcasts or wherever you happen to be listening to this after the fact, and leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate saying swag every single month. Make sure you guys are following us on Instagram at Mile High Huddle with an underscore between Mile and High and Huddle. And if you can and are able to do so, especially with the holiday season coming up, go to mhhmerch.com to get your gear on, not swag. Again, I hate saying swag. And they make great gifts for people. You guys can get hats like the ones that we have on, shirts, mugs, all sorts of different stuff. I got to get around to getting myself a Broncos for breakfast hat. And with the way things are going, to building the Broncos hat, because I've been on it so much over the last few weeks. And you guys can also follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/milehighhuddlepod and facebook.com/milehighhuddle. You guys can get access to all of our written content there, like my almost weekly film pieces. I didn't do one this week because it was a condensed week and things were really busy, especially with not having a car. You guys get access to, our picks, not just mine and Lance's, but everybody's picking for Mile High Huddle and all of our reasons. My bold predictions, my key matchups, my player grades. I have my first 4 games grades are out. My quarterly just came out this week. You guys can also follow us on Twitter at Huddle, at the MHH Pod, and at DVDD_pod, and Lance and myself respectively at Erick Trickel, and then at Lance S_MHH. That is going to do it for us. We hope you guys have a wonderful night. But before we get out of here, Lance, any last words?
Yeah, just a quick programming update. Guys, I will probably not be on the show next week. Still trying to work out the behind-the-scenes logistics. My son, Jace, had wrist surgery, and he just got cleared to be able to go back and play next week. So I'm hoping to be able to go and watch a game there. Getting back to the high school football schedule again, it's his senior season. So I'm going to try to go to as many games as humanly possible because family is always first. I love it and appreciate every single one of you guys for joining us and listening to me ramble on about the Broncos and give out like ridiculous takes. But I want to watch my son go play some football. So next week for sure, probably not going to be here. I'm not sure what the schedule looks like going after that at this particular point. But other than that, no, you guys stay safe and take care. Have a great rest of your weekend. We love and appreciate every one of you. We will see you guys next week. And as always, go Broncos.
Yeah, not only that, the final Friday of the month, we will be taking the night off. It's Halloween. We're going to spend the time with the family, as Lance said. Family comes first. We do love and appreciate all of you guys, especially those who come in and super chat and star, of course. Give us money, makes us love you more. No, I'll do anybody who comes in just and chats and just joins in with the conversation. We love and appreciate you all. But family comes first. It's Halloween. We're going to be taking it out, and I'll definitely be putting a picture of the Halloween costumes. My family likes to do a family Halloween costume this year, and we're really excited for this one. Nobody will ever be able to guess what we're being. There is absolutely no hints whatsoever around anywhere in my office.
I was gonna say it's Star Wars themed, isn't it?
Yeah, we're all set. It's nice because I get to use my custom lightsabers and use that for that. But anyways, guys, thank you guys for joining. As always, we appreciate you guys. No Lance next week. I will be here Monday. 2 weeks from this week. 2 weeks from this Sunday is the meet and greet. So that's rapidly approaching. I will see you guys on Monday, and Lance will see you here in a couple weeks. We appreciate you guys. Make sure you guys stay safe. Don't drink and drive. And as my good friend Nick always says, choose kindness and compassion. And of course, go Broncos.